Alright, everyone, welcome back to the Richard O'Reilly Show. I'm Richard O'Reilly, and today is Wednesday. It is June the 14th of 2017, and originally today, the big story was meant to be the Jeff Sessions testimony, but that story has sort of been totally overshadowed today by a much bigger story that broke this morning. There has been an attack. There's been an attack on Republican members of Congress, and there's been many injuries. The suspect is dead, but I want to get into that first of all. It's probably going to be what I talk about most today, but it's just I have a lot to say about it, and I have a lot to sort of read here. I have an article from the New York Times. I have two articles from the New York Times about. I have one about the attack, and I have another one about the testimony. So I'm going to be getting into the testimony later on, but I do want to start with the attack. So let's just get right into it. So there was an attack. Steve Scalise is among the 5 shot at a baseball field, and the suspect is dead. This is from the New York Times, and it's saying that a lone gunman opened fire on Republican members of the congressional baseball team at a practice field in a Washington suburb Wednesday, using a rifle to shower the field with bullets that struck 5 people, including Steve Scalise, the majority whip of the House of Representatives. So here we have this guy who went and opened fire on the congressional baseball team, the Republican team. There were injuries, and it included Steve Scalise, who was a majority whip of the House of Representatives. The suspect, it gets into who the suspect was and his motive, and the absolute worst part about this is the fact that we even have some people who were questioning his motive. So I'm gonna get into what the whole motive was and what the kind of guy who did this was. So it says here that President Trump, in a statement from the White House, said the shooting suspect had died. Law enforcement authorities identified him as James T. Hodgkinson, 66, from Belleville, Illinois, a suburb of St. Louis. So this guy was a big-time Bernie fan. He was way into Bernie. He was a part of very anti-Republican groups. It says here in a little bit, on Facebook, Mr. Hodgkinson appeared to be a member of anti-Republican groups. The newspaper said that one such group is called Terminate the Republican Party, and another is called Illinois Burners United to Resist Trump. Burner, of course, talking about Bernie Sanders, about how his fans apparently call themselves Burners. I have never heard of that until now, but apparently that's a thing. And this one group, the Terminate the Republican Party group, actually celebrated after this attack. The suspect is dead, and the group celebrated because there were injuries to Republicans in Congress. So they just celebrate that. I love how Facebook has these groups up there. Facebook has these groups. They're gonna take down these groups? No. Are they gonna take down a group that's sitting there and cheering on this, what really is a terror attack? I mean, it's a terror attack. I mean, terrorism is violence with political motivation. This clearly had political motivation, and for some reason now the media won't call it terrorism. They won't call it what it is. The media is completely silent on this. The media is just, as soon as this came out, I remember this was such a big thing. Suddenly it comes out, the guy's motive, and you sort of see the media slightly sort of tone it down. The media has toned it down. They're not talking about it as much as they would if this was just a normal attack. They found out the motive, and now the coverage has sort of slowed down. I wonder why that is. This is still a breaking story, by the way. So the information that I have here is the information that I had at the time that I was preparing to do this show. So if anything that I say is out of date, or if more things come out later on, I won't have them right now, but I will be sure to talk about them tomorrow and in the coming days, talking about all of the information that comes out. But this is just the thing. I mean, the media, the way they cover this, they do properly sort of say that he was part of these groups and that he was, he was a big time Bernie fan. But of course, then after this whole thing comes out that he was a big time Bernie fan and that he was part of these groups, the media tones it down and the coverage sort of slows down a little bit. Could you imagine if this was like the Democrats being attacked? Oh, forget about it. The media would have been on it. They would have been on it all day for like 5 weeks. It would have been considered like we would have had like a national holiday to remember the victims of the attack. We would have had, it would have been the biggest story of all time. We would have had moments of silence everywhere. Even if nobody died, there would have been moments of silence everywhere. There would be this whole push. There would be this whole push on the party, the Republican Party. There would be a whole push on everyone on the right to disavow. They would be forced to disavow. They would be forced to just ferociously and fiercely apologize repeatedly. They would be forced to apologize. They would be forced to disavow. They would be forced to come out and and disavow all of these so-called right-wing extremist groups. They would be forced into supporting gun control legislation. They would be forced into looking like the bad guys, and they would be forced to sort of accept that and put up with it. But this happens, and where's the push on the Democrats to disavow? Where's the push on the Democrats to make them sort of look inward and say, hey, maybe we have a problem in the party where our rhetoric is a bit too intense and it's causing people to do things like this? Where is the reflection? Where is the push to make them apologize and to make them recognize that this is the result of their rhetoric? Where's the push? Where's the push? There's no push. Instead, we have all of these petty little calls for unity. How are we going to be unified when we have things like this going on? How are we going to be unified? That doesn't make any sense. How are we going to be unified when we have this going on? We can't be unified like that. So the Democrats are getting off easy, because the Republicans they're too polite, and they don't push. They push for unity and bipartisanship, and Democrats they just sit by and they clap and they cheer because they love it. They love the idea of having this bipartisanship and having unity instead of having them be pressured to disavow and to apologize and to look inward and reflect and realize that, hey, maybe you guys are being way too intense and maybe it's inspiring people to do things like this. They don't say that. There's nothing like that. There's no push. You remember Dylan Roof? Remember the aftermath of that and how absolutely everybody on the entire right had to deal with the questions. Do you think that your rhetoric is inspiring these people? Do you think that you're being racist? Do you think that you're being too bigoted that it's gonna inspire people like this to do these kind of things? The pressure was on them big time, and they all had to just apologize and disavow over and over and over again. But now this happens. Democrats, what do? They do nothing. Democrats do nothing. You have some we disavow violence. We don't agree with violence. But there's no looking inward. There's no reflection. There's no admitting, maybe we are being a bit insane. Maybe when we call the president a Russian agent over and over and over again, maybe it's going to inspire people to try and take him out in any way they can. And this isn't just the president, it's Republicans in Congress too, because they say, not only do they say that the president is a Russian agent, they say, all of the Republicans in Congress who are helping him and aiding him, which is a total lie, by the way, because nobody in Congress is helping him. Total lie. They say, Republicans in Congress, they're conspirators too. They're working with the president, and the president is a Russian agent. He's a hostile foreign power has influence over our president. Our president is a puppet. And Republicans in Congress are aiding our puppet of a president. When they say that, and they imply it, even if they don't say it, they imply it, don't you think it's going to inspire someone to say, come on, we can't have a Russian agent being president. We can't have congressmen that are going to defend a foreign agent as president. Well, we got to go take him down. We got to go do something. We got to do something. So they inspire this kind of thing. They inspire this kind of thing through all of their rhetoric, not just Russia. Just everything. Even the media, the Democrats, all of these left-wing institutions. This is the result of all of their rhetoric over the past 2 years. all of the insults and the it started as insults. Then it turned into dehumanizing of not just President Trump, but also everyone who supports him and everyone in his party. It turned into straight dehumanizing. That's what it became. And this is the result. This is the result of it. I mean, and then people don't call it like it is. They don't say what it actually is. They don't say that this is terrorism. No one calls it terrorism. They're calling it murder. They're calling it all this. No one says terrorism in the media. Nobody. Do you think that if this was reversed, they would ever even hesitate to call this terrorism? There would be no hesitation. They wouldn't even think about it. They would call it terrorism immediately. But with this, they don't even call it that. They call it murder. They try and speculate, and they say the police said, "Oh, we're not sure of the motive. We're gonna have to investigate." How are you not sure of the motive? Why is it always that whenever there's an attack like this, whether it be Islam or whether it be the far left, they always say, "Oh, we don't know the motive. The motive's not clear to us," even though most of the time it very obviously is clear, and it comes out later on that that was the motive. That's just what it was. But then at first they always say, "Oh, we don't know the motive yet. We don't know. We're clueless. We have no idea." If you have no idea what the motive is at this case, then you shouldn't even be with the police. I mean, if you look at this and you don't know what the motive is, I mean, forget about it. I mean, how can you say that? Yeah, how can you say that? How can you doubt what the motive was? I mean, come on. I mean, he specifically targeted Republicans. He specifically went after them. He was like, "Oh yeah, who's out there on the field right now? Are those Republicans?" And they were like, "Yeah." So of course he went after them. Why would he ask? Why would he ask what team and what party was out there if this was just a random act of like insanity and random act of violence? And they say, "Oh, it was just an attack on government in general, not just Republicans." But he specifically wanted to know who was out on the field, and then he found out it was Republicans. So he went out there, and he did what he did. If they were Democrats out there, odds are, I mean, he's a big Bernie guy. He's very anti-Republican. He probably would have just went home, or he would have waited, or something like that. So this whole idea that he was just a disgruntled guy who wasn't. He was attacking government in general, not just one party or one group. Total lie. Total lie. It's not just ignorance. It's a total lie. Because you can't, if you know absolutely anything about this, there's no way to come to the conclusion that this was a random act of violence or that this was an attack on just government and not a specific party, a specific group. There's no way to come to that conclusion unless, of course, you're lying. And in this case, everyone in the media, they're all lying. They don't call it terrorism, they're all lying. All the Democrats, where they refuse, they don't disavow, they don't disavow because they're not even being pushed to disavow. There's no push, there's no fight, so they all get away with it, and then we're going to return to business as usual. What a joke. What a joke. What a disgusting joke we have when it comes to the media and the Democrats and what these people do. And their rhetoric and the way that they spin things. What a disgusting joke. How can you even have that? How did it get to the point where we can have an attack like this, and then we have a media that refuses to say terrorism, we have a Democratic Party that takes no responsibility, and the Republican Party that doesn't push on the Democrats at all, and instead they push for unity. You can't have unity when you have people like this doing things like this. It's just not possible. It's not doable. It's time to stop with this whole, it's both sides. Both sides are equally as bad when it comes to the whole problem of unity and division. It's not equal. They're not just as bad. It's things like this, and it's Democrats like this. And it's not just here. There's a whole, culture of violence on the left right now. There's this whole idea that's been spreading for a while, that, look, violence is never okay. But when it comes to Republicans and right-wingers, I mean, violence is fine, because, the right wing, I mean, they're not even, really people, they're just, racists, they're not even really people, so violence is fine against them. But when it comes to everything else, no, unacceptable. And look, it's an idea that the Democrats haven't embraced, and the media hasn't. And the media has kind of embraced. The media has embraced in a way because they don't call it terrorism. They don't report on attacks like this. They don't report on when the left is being violent. They only report on like Trump the fights at Trump rallies, where you have a supporter who punched the protester in the face when he was walking out. They report on that. They report on that for months and months and months, and they use that over and over and over again as evidence that, oh yeah, he's inspiring violence. They use that as evidence over and over and over again. They say it again for months and months and months. But when it's the left, they do nothing. They do nothing. They say nothing. They do nothing. They don't even care. So the media has kind of adopted that idea of, oh yeah, when it's against the right, the violence, when it's against the right, it doesn't really count. It doesn't. It's they're just right wingers. They're just Republicans. They're not even really people, obviously, right? That's their idea. That's the idea that they have in their head. And the Democrats haven't embraced that idea, at least not yet. But they have sort of. They refuse to say anything about it. They don't mention that. They don't bring it up. They don't say, hey, maybe our base is getting a little out of hand. Maybe they're getting completely insane and out of their minds. Maybe we need to tell them to calm down or disavow or something like that. They don't do any of that. But when it's us, when it's the Republican Party, forget about it. There's always calls to disavow constantly. Every time there's a racist out there who endorses Trump is forced to disavow. They push on him harder and harder and harder every single day. But when it comes to all of the people on the left, all of the nut jobs out there who do crazy things, do you think that there's ever any push on the Democrats to disavow? There's nothing. There's not even any mention of it. There's nothing. The media doesn't even mention what's going on the left right now. All of the whole like radical left-wing thing that we had going on college campuses and just in cities like, in like Portland and stuff like that. All this is going on, and the media, it's like it happened in secrecy. It's like it was a secret organization, because the media never reports on it. The media never reports on these so-called anti-fascist mobs that show up to every right-wing event to disrupt and to cause violence and to attack people. The media doesn't report on them. Instead, they report on the alt-right. This big like, this is their new like boogeyman, the alt-right. Oh my God, they're coming to get you, along with Russians. They never report on anything that the left does. They never report on any of that, and it's just it's so disgusting. I mean, it's just such a mess. Anyway, in the article, it keeps on going. And it says, it says here, excuse me. The shooting stunned the Capitol as it began the workday. Out of caution, officials quickly put in place a robust police presence throughout the Capitol complex, and the Secret Service added security around the White House. Mr. Trump came to the diplomatic reception room at the White House after the shooting and said, "We may have our differences, but we do well in times like these to remember that everyone who serves in our nation's capital is here because, above all, they love our country." Now, Donald, look, I know you're trying to do the whole unity thing, and I get it. It's a good cause, it sounds good, it sounds great, and I don't disagree with it. I don't disagree with unity. In fact, I'm all about unity. You know what I mean? But how come our president comes out and calls for unity when Barack Obama, whenever there was a shooting, he would come out and he would do his little crying on camera, and then he would try and push for gun control, and he would try and shame Republicans. He would try to imply that they were responsible for deaths. Why can't Trump do that? Why is it that we have a party that's so concerned about being polite and about being respectful and decent to the opposition, when we have Democrats that they literally said, oh yeah, this new healthcare plan means that the Republican Party is going to be literally responsible for the deaths of many children and babies. So they can say that. How come we can't say, yeah, Democrats are responsible for this attack? They're responsible for the attack because of their rhetoric, and it's out of control. Their out of control rhetoric and their out of control the way they just do things, the way that they talk about things, the way that they sort of try and attack and go after people, the way that they imply that everyone is a Russian agent. Why can't we go after them? Why is that considered to be controversial to go after them? It shouldn't be. Because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to go after them because they are responsible in some way. They're responsible for this whole culture that they've created. This whole resistance culture that they've created. So they're let off free. They're let off totally free. And I guarantee, within like a day, tomorrow they'll be right back to the whole resistance. They'll be back to everything. This whole thing will be totally forgotten about, and we'll have Democrats that'll just go right back to the old thing, to the old routine. They'll go back to resisting and calling everyone a Russian agent and a Putin puppet. They'll go back to it. Because there's no push. There's no push on them. Why can't we force them to apologize? Why can't we force them to disavow? And why can't we force them to acknowledge that, yes, this is what happens when you have rhetoric like you do, and you say all these things, these dehumanizing things. This is what happens. Why can't we push them on that? Why do we have to say, oh, unity? We can't have unity when we have things like this going on. We can't have it. It's just not possible to achieve. So anyway, in the article it keeps on going, and it says here that Mr. Hodgkinson, the shooter, he appeared to have been a fervent fan of Senator Bernie Sanders. According to a Facebook page with references to the Vermont senator, a LinkedIn page for James Hodgkinson had a profile photo showing Mr. Sanders' famous hair and glasses and the words, "The dawn of a new democracy." In a statement on Wednesday morning, Mr. Sanders said that he had been told the alleged shooter had volunteered for his presidential campaign. Mr. Sanders offered his hopes and prayers for the shooting victims. He said, "I am sickened by this despicable act," Mr. Sanders said. "Let me be as clear as I can be. Violence of any kind is unacceptable in our society, and I condemn this action in the strongest possible terms. Real change can only come about through non-violent action." So is this Bernie Sanders now admitting that this guy was fighting for change, for his agenda? Is this Bernie Sanders like saying like, yeah, this guy wanted change. This guy wanted to change the system, so he did this. Now look, I'm not gonna go after Bernie too hard, because he said that he's hoping and praying, and that he's sickened by the act, and that he's saying that violence is unacceptable. So I totally respect that, and in my book, Bernie Sanders is okay when it comes to this. But at the same time, I'm also kind of not. I'm kind of not okay with Bernie yet. I mean, look, it's a good first step to say, oh yeah, I'm sickened and this is horrible. It's a good first step. But you need to remember that Bernie, he needs to come out and he needs to say, look, this is what happens. If he's truly a principled politician like people claim that he is. Everyone says that, oh yeah, Bernie Sanders is so principled. He's going to put the country before the party. If he really was that principled, then he would come out and he would denounce and he would say, look, Democrats, this is what happens. This is the result of what we've been doing. We need to calm down. We need to tone everything down because things are getting out of control. Why can't he come out and say that? And why can't we push him harder on that? I mean, I don't understand why this is such a controversial thing to do. It's such a controversial thing to do. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So, he goes on to say here that Mr. Hodgkinson also seemed to be extremely anti-Trump. He appears to have signed an online petition calling for the president to be impeached, posting it on Facebook with a chilling comment, "It's time to destroy Trump and company." So he's sort of been at this for a while now, this whole anti-Trump thing. And by the way, absolutely despicable the way that we have people on the left who are trying to blame Trump for this. I looked on Twitter the reactions, And all I saw from Democrats and liberals, they were all saying, "Oh, see this is what happens with Trump's culture of hate and his climate of hate. This is Trump's America, guys. Oh, look, I can't believe it." How can you say that this is Trump's fault? How disgusting is that? How sick is that? How sick are these people? How sick are they? How sick are these people that they're going to go out and they're going to blame Trump for this attack? Because they don't take responsibility. They have no sense of responsibility. They have no dignity. They have no integrity. They come out and they say, "Oh, this is what happens when you have a culture of hate on the right." Are they trying to imply that these congressmen deserved it? They're saying, "Oh, look, this is what happens when you're so hateful and you're so racist all the time. Look, this is what happens." They were asking for it, right? They were asking for it. Is this what it is now? Is this victim blaming? I mean, you always like to say, "Oh, victim blaming." Oh, you always complain about that. What about this? "Oh, this is what happens when you breed a culture of hate and you breed division and hatred everywhere." This is what they say now. That's so disgusting. It's so tragic that people even say that. And it's just such a disgusting thing. It's so disgusting. Notice how we said Trump and company, by the way. In his eyes, the party is part of his company, even though it's not really part of his company at all, because they're not really supporting him, and they're sort of actually, in some ways, they're working against him, like actively. Like when it comes to the whole Russia thing, with the Russia sanctions, and they're saying, "Oh yeah, if you want to roll back sanctions, you can't." Well, that's ridiculous. But that's what they're doing now. So they're actively working against him, so they're not his company. But in his eyes, they are. That's why he targeted them. And people don't mention that. The media doesn't mention that. The Democrats, they don't mention that. If you had just listened to the speech from Trump and all of the speeches from everyone, you would have had no idea the motive behind this. You would have no idea, because there's no mention. There's no mention of the motive. There's no mention of what this guy was into and what he was doing. There's no mention. There's no mention. It's such a disgusting mess. It keeps on. It goes on, and it says here, the authorities said they could not comment on the motive for the shooting. What do you mean you can't comment on the motive? The motive is clear. The motive is right there. The motive is right in front of us. There's no way you can even say that it was anything other than an act of terror against the Republican Party by a big-time far-left Democrat who is out of his mind and who is all into Bernie Sanders. There's no way you can say that it was anything other than that. What else could it possibly be? There's nothing. There's nothing that could possibly be. There's nothing. Nothing at all. So what do you mean you can't comment on the motive? What is that supposed to mean? Tim Slater, a special agent in charge in the FBI's Washington field office, said investigators were exploring all angles. What other angles could there possibly be? What other angles could there possibly be? I can't think of anything else this could possibly be. I mean, you can say, "Oh, he was just going out, he was just fighting, he was just sick of government in general." There was a CNN interview. They had a guest on. They had someone who was calling in. They were saying, "Oh yeah, this wasn't an attack on Republicans. This was just an attack on government in general. This guy, he was just sick and tired of politics, so he did this." I mean, I am sick and tired of politics all the time. Am I gonna go and shoot up some senators and some congressmen? Is that what I'm gonna do now? What do you mean he was just sick and tired of politics? I think everyone is sick and tired of politics, because politics is a mess right now. Everyone is sick and tired of politics. So, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna go out and shoot people. No, there was a motivation. It was a political motivation. It wasn't just, "Oh, he was just attacking." It was just a general attack on government. No, it wasn't. It was an attack on a specific party. So the guest says that on CNN, and CNN says nothing about it. CNN, if you were a real news organization, then you would say, "No, it's not just he wasn't just tired of politics. There's a motivation behind it. There's a political motivation. And it was an anti-Republican kind of thing. It was an anti-Trump thing. It wasn't just, oh, he was tired of politics in general." What is that? Give me a break. I mean, what is that? What a joke of an excuse. What a joke of an argument. That's a joke. It's a joke. The whole reaction and the media spin and the Democrats' spin is such a joke. And because we have a party of Republicans that just don't have a spine, and they don't go out there, and they don't push, and they don't fight, because we have a party like that, they're allowed to get away with it. They're getting away with it. They're getting away with the spin because they don't question it. They don't question the whole spin of like, oh yeah, he was just tired of government, and he was just tired of politics as usual. He just wanted to take down the government. That's their spin. And Democrats, they don't mention anything about his motivation. And because we have a party that just is so spineless, they get away with it. They get away with it. No one pushes on it. No one pushes. No one fights. It's an embarrassment, and it's a disgusting mess. That's really what it is. And then here it says, ready? He said, asked whether the shooting was an assassination attempt, he said, it was too early in the investigation to say one way or another. Now this is a little bit more reasonable because it wasn't an assassination attempt, because an assassination implies that it was just one target. What it really was an act of terror. I mean, he wasn't, it's not like he had a sniper rifle, he was firing at everyone. So this wasn't an assassination attempt, this was a terror act. This is an act of terrorism. This wasn't an assassination attempt. So I want the spin to just stop. The spin has got to stop. So it's just got to stop right now, because the spin is so disgusting and it's so sick and it's so vile. It's so vile. The spin is so disgusting, and then of course they're gonna get away with it because Republicans, again, they don't push and they don't fight, and I'm just kind of embarrassed by it. I'm kind of embarrassed that we have a party. Democrats, if this was the other way around, Democrats would have capitalized on it immediately. They would have made it political immediately. They always say to us, oh my god, like me saying this, they would say to me, oh my god, how dare you politicize an event like this? How dare you politicize a tragedy? I'm only doing what you guys have done for years and years and years. Whenever there's a shooting, you always say, oh, see, this is what happens when you have a party, when you have Republicans who refuse to pass gun control. That's what they always say. They always say it, and they always say it immediately after the attack, after the shooting. They say it immediately after. They don't even wait. So why should we wait? Why should we even wait? And why aren't we fighting like we should be? I don't get it. I don't get it. So Donald Trump sent a tweet. He said, Representative Steve Scalise of Louisiana, a true friend and patriot, was badly injured but will fully recover. Our thoughts and prayers are with him. Donald Trump on June 14th on his Twitter account. So, good tweet. And I think that, and like, I don't really blame the president with this whole thing. I don't really blame him for not coming out and fighting, because to him it's probably not really like, it's not like a respectable thing. It's very like dirty, and I get it. It's dirty, but this is a dirty game. This is such a dirty, the Democrats have made it so dirty. They've made it dirty. They've made it dirty. They've made it so dirty that we have a guy that does this, and it's their rhetoric that caused it. Don't be mistaken. It's their rhetoric. The Democrats' rhetoric is what caused this. So don't get that mistaken. It's their rhetoric. But then people don't call them out on that. So I don't blame Donald Trump, but I feel like he should come out and he should fight more than he does, because I feel like he needs to fight more on this, and he needs to come out and he needs to say, look. He needs to like tweet out and say, look, Democrats, why you guys are being so aggressive and you're dehumanizing me. And this is what happens when you have such a culture of hatred on the left. They always say, oh, the right has such a culture of hatred. On the left, it's even worse. They don't even think of us as people. They think of us as like these little subhuman mongrels with no brains, just blindly following what our dear leader Donald Trump says. That's what they think of us. They don't think that we're even people. So why can't we call out this culture of hate on the left? And why can't Trump come out and say, Democrats, what do you gotta say? I mean, look at this guy was inspired by you guys, He was inspired by you. He was using your talking points. He was all in for Bernie Sanders. He was all in for you guys. And I can guarantee that once we do some investigation, this guy, this Hodgkinson, it's going to be revealed that he bought in to the whole Russia story. I guarantee he bought into that. I mean, I can't guarantee. I think that he does, though. Because, I mean, the idea that, think about how serious that accusation is. Like, now we don't even think about how serious it actually is. We don't think about how serious the accusation is that, oh yeah, our president is just a foreign agent. He's a puppet of a foreign government. That's what they say. That's their accusation. Isn't that's so serious? But they throw it around like it's nothing. They just throw it around all the time. Keith Olbermann throws it around every single day on his YouTube channel. The Resistance. He throws it around every day. And this is what happens. I mean, if you truly believed that we had a president who was an agent of a foreign hostile government, wouldn't you want to say, oh god, we got to take action? I mean, come on, we can't just sit around like this. We got to take action. Direct action. So that probably was his motivation in some way or another. I mean, of course there are other factors, but that was he probably did buy into the whole Russia thing. And I really do want to see the facts. I want to see the facts come out. I want to see what his specific motivation was. But I think that just in general, we should fight. And we should capitalize on this, because this is just showing what we've been saying for a long time now about how the left is so violent, and about how they have this culture of hate, and how they dehumanize us, and how much they hate us, and how much they want to get rid of us. This is proof. So we need to use it. This is our proof. We need to use it. So anyway, we have a little bit more. Representative Jared Huffman said on Twitter that the Democratic baseball team was practicing when its members heard the news. We are safe with police. Everyone praying for GOP colleagues, staff, and Capitol Police, he wrote. So we do have, and again, like I don't want to go after. I don't want to call, like, I'm not sitting here saying, oh, Democrats are terrorists, right? Because they're not. But they do inspire this kind of violence with their whole rhetoric against Donald Trump. Their rhetoric has a lot to do with it, and we need to be able to say that, and we need to say it loud and clear, because people don't realize that in the media. They don't mention that, and they spin it, and they refuse to say it's terrorism. So we need to go after them, and we need to fight back. We gotta fight. We gotta be strong. But other than that, that's about all I have to say. Right. So that was a lot. That's all I had to say about that. I'm gonna move into the Jeff Sessions hearing, the testimony, and there's a lot that happened. And like I said before, about how I didn't think that he should have testified, because I thought that he would be treated horribly by Congress, and I was right. So before I get into that, I'm just gonna have a quick drink. Alright, there we go. Beautiful. So yeah, so we have the Sessions testimony, and we had a lot of things happen. We didn't have much substance come out, because it was basically things that we already knew. But he did well. Sessions, he did well. I like the work that he did, and I'm gonna get into it right now. Alright, so let's go ahead. So, the New York Times has a bunch of highlights from the Jeff Sessions Senate testimony. So it says here in the article, it says, excuse me, it says, Attorney General Jeff Sessions engaged in a highly contentious testimony before the Senate Intelligence Committee on Tuesday, with Democrats pressing him on his conversations with President Trump related to the investigation of Russia meddling in the 2016 election. He called any suggestion that he colluded with Russians during the election as an appalling lie. Please, colleagues, hear me out on this, he said. So he was pushed. I believe it was about 12 times. He was asked the same question 12 times about Russia. 12 times the same question. And then they say, oh, he's not answering our questions. Because you're asking him the same thing over and over again, and he has the same answers. Because obviously he does. It's the same question over and over and over and over again. So this whole thing, I'm gonna get into some quotes and some stuff right now. So let's go ahead. In the article it says here, after coming under fire for failing to disclose his interactions with the Russian ambassador during his confirmation hearing, Mr. Sessions was determined to provide his version of the events, and he did not waste any time. He said, "I have never met with or had any conversations with any Russians or any foreign officials concerning any type of interference with any campaign or election in the United States," he said during his opening statement. So he's saying that I've never met with any Russian officials about any kind of interference in the campaign, in the election. He said that there was no meeting about any of that. So basically he's saying there was no collusion, which is their new big thing. It's the collusion. Oh, collusion with Russia. Even though they've never proven interference in the first place. Never. I say it so many times. I say it every day. They've never proven interference. And yet they keep on pushing. They keep on pushing and they keep on saying, oh yeah. They say interference is proven, right? Everyone knows there's interference, obviously, right? Interference is proven. So let's move on to collusion. But no, you can't move on to collusion if you haven't proved the interference yet. They say, oh, we can't release the evidence at this time. We can't release our evidence at this time. It's been a while. It's been, according to James Comey, 2 years. So why can't you give us your evidence? It's been 2 years of investigation. It's been 2 years since James Comey said that it was summer of 2015. That was when they first learned about the whole Russia thing, about Russian hacking, allegedly. That's what they say. So 2 years, they have known about this. 2 years, and they still have nothing. They still have nothing. They have no evidence at all. And yet, it doesn't even matter if they have evidence or not. Their claims keep on getting more and more serious by the day. First it was, oh, they stole the DNC emails and gave it to WikiLeaks. Okay. Then it was, oh yeah, they made fake news and they spread the fake news online. And then it was, oh yeah, they directly tried to hack. They tried to hack the election directly. And then they said, oh yeah, they also hacked the French election. And then they said, oh yeah, they also hacked local elections. So even they're saying, oh yeah, even your mayor isn't a legitimate mayor because he's, Russian hacking in local elections. So they keep on making more and more claims that are more and more serious every single day. Even with Trump, first it was, oh yeah, Trump and Putin are like buddies. Now it's, oh yeah, Trump is Putin's puppet. So they've changed that. It's just such a, it's so, you don't have anything. You have nothing. So what is the whole deal? What's the deal with all this? I don't get it. They say it over and over again. They say Russia, 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 hacking, hacking, hacking. But they have no proof of anything. They can't prove anything. So where's the Russian hacking? Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? It's been 2 years. There's nothing. And now they've moved on to collusion. Now they act like it's a conspiracy theory to deny Russian hacking. They say that's a conspiracy now to them. They say, oh yeah, Donald Trump is pushing the conspiracy theory that there was no Russian hacking. That's not a conspiracy. That's just making judgments based on facts, because the facts say that there's no evidence. There's nothing there. They've been investigating for years, literally years, and there's been no evidence ever presented. No evidence ever. No evidence ever. And yet they just say it like it's a duh. Like it's duh. Obviously there was hacking, right? Obviously. Duh. Hacking. Duh. Obviously, right? It's not duh. It's not obviously. You've never proven it. You have to prove it. You can't just say things like that. You have to prove them. Anyway, moving on. In the article it also says that Mr. Sessions denied meeting with the Russian officials at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington in April 2016, adding that he could not recall any private conversations with the Russian ambassador, Sergei I. Kislyak. I don't know how to pronounce that at all. He said, if any interaction occurred in passing with the Russian ambassador, I do not remember it, he said. So he's saying that he doesn't remember if he talked to them, but he said that it wasn't a formal thing. So he said, they go after him now. They say, oh, he said he didn't remember. Maybe he did then. He said that he didn't remember if he had a brief interaction in passing. So, like, brief interaction in passing is like saying hi in the hallway. That's not sitting down and having a conversation. That's just saying, oh yeah, hey, hey, nice to meet you, something like that. That's a brief interaction. That's not a conversation. So you're saying, oh, he said that he doesn't remember. Yeah, you don't remember things like that. You don't remember if you said hi to someone in the hallway like a year ago, over a year ago. April 2016, this happened. And now they're saying, oh, he doesn't remember. He doesn't remember if he had a passing conversation. That's like saying, oh my god, oh, you said hi to me in the hallway a year ago. You said hi to me in the hallway and you don't remember me? Yeah, obviously you don't, because it's a year ago and it's a brief interaction. It's not a conversation. But they use this as incriminating evidence. They say, "Oh, he doesn't remember. He doesn't remember." That means there's something there. There's nothing there. There's still nothing there. You keep on using this flimsy evidence. This very flimsy, very not concrete at all, very shaky evidence to prove your little narrative. To put together a smoking gun. It's made out of just all of this weird, shaky evidence that it doesn't really add up, doesn't make any sense. They use that and they use it over and over again, and they just don't even give us facts. They don't give us anything. It's disgusting. Anyway, in the article talking about James Comey, he said, while he did not provide me with any of the substance of his conversation with the president, Mr. Comey expressed concern about the proper communications protocol with the White House and with the president. I responded to his comment by agreeing that the FBI and the DOJ needed to be careful to follow department policies regarding appropriate contacts with the White House. So what happened is that Comey said that he didn't want to be left alone with Donald Trump. Comey said that he didn't want to be left alone with Trump. And he said that to Sessions. And he said that Sessions ignored him. Sessions is saying that he didn't ignore him. That obviously, as I'm not going to say, okay, I won't leave you alone with Donald Trump. That's just not a thing. But he did say, oh yeah, we need to follow protocol. We need to make sure that we're being proper and everything. I mean, obviously, that's just what else would you say? Like, oh yeah, we need to follow protocol. We need to be proper, and we need to make sure that we're following all the rules. I mean, obviously. I mean, what else could you even say in that point? So I don't really understand what Comey's claim here is, like what he's trying to say. But Sessions pretty much just said, no, I just told him, like, all right, we're going to have to make sure that we're following all the rules and all the protocols, and you make sure that we're being proper and everything. So that was the thing about Comey. He also said that he said that he recused himself of the Russian investigation because he said that it would be inappropriate because he was part of the campaign. Jeff Sessions, by the way, was he was the very first big time endorsement for Donald Trump. Because at first Donald Trump in the campaign, if you don't remember, he had no endorsements at all. He had no endorsements at all. No one endorsed him. So Jeff Sessions was the first one to come out and say, yeah, I endorse Donald Trump for president. He was the first major politician to say that. So, and back then, everyone in the media, they all said, oh, Jeff Sessions, he's Trump's first serious mainstream endorsement. And now they're saying, oh, Jeff Sessions is a right-wing extremist. He's so far right. He's so out of there. He's so radical. He's so extreme. What do you mean? You just said that he was his first mainstream, conservative, right-wing, mainstream Republican. He was his first endorsement. Now you're saying, oh, he's so out there. And that doesn't make any sense. And then now they're saying that, oh, they're saying, oh, he recused himself. What does that mean? Does that mean that he's guilty? Does that mean that he's dirty? That he's got things going on? That he's got ties to Russia? No, it means that he was part of the campaign for a long time, So obviously you can't investigate the campaign that you were a part of. Obviously, Russia or no Russia, you can't investigate a campaign that you were a part of. So that's why he did it. He said that's why he did it. I mean, of course that's why he did it, right? I mean, it's just obvious. Why else would he do that? It's not because he's a Russian agent. I mean, that's for sure. If he really was a Russian agent, like they say he is, then wouldn't he have not recused himself? Because I mean, if he was really working for Russia, he would have stayed on. He would have stayed on the investigation, so that he could have influenced it, so that he could have sort of toned it down. But he didn't do that. He recused himself because he was part of the campaign, so it's not appropriate like that. So this idea that he recused himself because he's a Russian agent, because he's got too many ties with Russia to properly investigate. I mean, I didn't even agree that much with his recusal, but it's not proof of anything. It doesn't prove any collusion. So Democrats just stop. Democrats just stop. Anyway, there's more here. Talking about, he said that he could have complained to the he's talking about James Comey here. He says he could have complained to the deputy. Ugh. He could have complained to the deputy or to me at any time that he felt pressure. He said, referring to Rod Rosenstein. So what he's saying is that, now this is something that's been brought up a lot of times. That's a good argument that people don't make very often, which I don't really know why. It's the argument that, look, if James Comey really believed that there was an attempt to obstruct justice, or that there was anything shady going on, then why didn't he report it? Why did he wait until he was fired to leak his memos and then give his testimony? Why did he wait? Why didn't he report that? Because legally, if you believe that there is an attempt to obstruct justice, then you're legally required to report that. But he didn't. So if he didn't report that, why would he... If he didn't report that, then why is he saying now, I don't know if it was obstruction of justice? You obviously know that it wasn't. Because if you're saying what he says now, he says, I'll let Mueller decide. I'll let Mueller decide if there was an attempt to obstruct justice. But if you didn't report that, so that's you saying that you don't believe that there was, even though you also said that there was a directive to stop the investigation, even though there wasn't. There was only a hope. A hope isn't anything. A hope is a hope. A hope is not anything that's criminal. So Comey, I mean, Sessions is saying here what people have been saying for a long time, that for some reason nobody is really picking up on, that why would Comey not report any of this stuff to Rosenstein or to anybody? He doesn't report anybody. Why don't you report anything? If you believe that there is something going on. And he said in his testimony, he said, oh yeah, I felt like there was something going on with Trump. I felt like there was something suspicious. I felt that he was going to lie. If you believe that, why didn't you report it ever? You never reported it. So what are you trying to say? Why did you wait until after you were fired to come out and say all these things? So it doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. So Sessions is saying that about Comey. And he also said, he goes on to say here that in his opening statement, Mr. Sessions said any suggestion that he participated in or was aware of any collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government to undermine the democratic process is an appalling and detestable lie. So obviously it is a lie. This is the part that I love here. I love that Jeff Sessions is saying that it's a lie. I love that he comes out and says that, yes, it is a lie. They're not just ignorant, they're lying. They're definitely lying. So Jeff Sessions, thank you for saying that. But I would go even further, and I would say, not only is it a lie that I had any awareness of collusion, it's a lie that there was collusion, and it's a lie that there was even any interference. He should have said that. That's what I would have said. But he did just say that it was a lie, that he was involved. So I'm glad that he's pushing like that. I'm glad that he's fighting that way. But I would go a step further and say that's a lie. And so is this whole sham, this whole witch hunt, this whole thing is a lie. I would have said that too. Also said here that Mr. Sessions defended his involvement in the decision to fire Mr. Comey, explaining that his recusal did not prevent him from having a say in his department's management decisions. He said that it is absurd, frankly, to suggest that a recusal from a single specific investigation would render an Attorney General unable to manage the leadership of the various Department of Justice law enforcement components that conduct thousands of investigations, he said. So, Jeff Sessions is now saying here, what he's saying is that basically what happened is that Jeff Sessions took part in the decision to fire James Comey. He was in favor of it, and he was part of the decision. And what Democrats are trying to say, they're trying to say, but Mr. Comey, you recused yourself. So, not Mr. Comey, Mr. Sessions, you recused yourself, but now you decided that you were going to fire Comey, you were going to help out with that. So, isn't that going against the recusal? And he said, of course not. That doesn't make any sense. James Comey said over and over again to Donald Trump that that he wasn't being investigated. So if he wasn't being investigated, then how can Jeff Sessions saying, oh yeah, fire Comey, and helping out with that, how can that be a part of the whole Russia investigation? It's not a part of it. So it's just Democrats it's just them being political, and them trying to score points on Jeff Sessions. This whole thing was just people trying to get him. People trying to get him to say something stupid, or something that would prove any kind of guilt. That's what they wanted. They wanted him to say something dumb. But he didn't say anything dumb. He made them look dumb. They're out here trying to make him look like some kind of criminal, saying all of these accusations. I love the difference in tone between the James Comey testimony and this one now. Because with James Comey, they were being so nice to him, and they were being so polite. They were like, "Oh my God, James Comey, an American hero. Thank you for your service. We need more people like you, James Comey. You're so strong and tough, James Comey." But now with Sessions, it's all accusatory, and it's all sort of accusing him, and all trying to be like a prosecutor, even though they're really not. Trying to say that, oh yeah, you did this, you did all these illegal things that he didn't actually do. And there's also a lot of things in terms of just like Democrats that are trying to make a moment out of what happened with Kamala Harris. So basically, Kamala Harris tried to push a question on Sessions over and over again, and Sessions was trying to speak, and she was interrupting him. And this happened recently as well, last week, when we had the hearings with the intelligence leaders. It was Kamala Harris who was pushing on them and sort of like, and interrupting them over and over again. And you had Republicans who were like, maybe we let them answer the questions that we're asking them, because maybe like they're here to answer questions. Why would we interrupt them? And then, so now we have this is great. We have Elizabeth Warren trying to turn this into a political thing. So she tweeted out, silencing Kamala Harris for not being courteous enough is just unbelievable. Keep fighting, Kamala. Hashtag, nevertheless, she persisted. So Warren she's trying to bring back the time where she was interrupted because she was trying to talk about Jeff Sessions. And basically what happened is that she was just shut down because she was breaking a Senate rule. Now, it was a rule that never gets brought up. But at the same time, I mean, you gotta admit, she should have seen it coming in some kind of way. And then she tried to make it into like a whole campaign, like, oh my God, Republicans are so sexist, they're trying to shut me down. And that's what they're trying to make it into. They're trying to say, oh, she's being silenced. It's not called being silenced if you're interrupting somebody who's trying to answer questions that you're asking. That's not being silent. That's just being told to, like, hey, you ask the man a question, let him answer the question. Duh, obviously. But they don't realize that. They don't realize how dumb they sound. And if they try and make this into an issue, it's gonna be embarrassing for them. I mean, I just wanted to end on that because, I mean, Elizabeth Warren, and Kamala Harris. It just goes to show that Democrats are not really serious about this whole thing. They just want to score points, and they want to look tough. So they do that by doing these weird interruptions, and then like these weird like hashtag campaigns about, oh my god, she persisted. It's just so strange. So I just wanted to end on that. But in terms of the whole thing in general with Sessions, he did a good job, and I can only hope that this means that Russia should take a bit of a back seat, because it's a bogus story, and the fact that we're covering it so much is just ridiculous. So anyway, we're at over an hour now, and that was a lot. That was a lot of stuff to go through. I know I only got to 2 things today, but that's just because that was like the only thing in the news. I mean, between the attack and the hearing, I mean, that was all there was. There was actually some things about healthcare. Donald Trump had a comment about healthcare. He said that it was that the House bill was actually he said that it was mean. That was his own word. He said it was mean. So that goes to show that Donald Trump is going to fight for better healthcare, going to try and get more funds. So that's a very good sign for healthcare. He's working to get healthcare and make the reform a lot better. So that's good. That's a good sign there, and I hope that healthcare becomes a big issue in the coming weeks or days, because it's a big issue, and it's one that we should be talking about more often. But other than that, that's about all that was going on today. I mean, between the attack and the hearing, I mean, that was all we really had. So, I'm going to go ahead and end it right here. Everyone, thank you very much for listening. I have been Richard O'Reilly. This has been the Richard O'Reilly Show. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.